Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 79, cover dated June 1992. So this cover is by Joe Quesada, inked by Kevin Nowlan, and it is a really nicely designed one. It's eye-catching, it's intriguing. We have the idea of the sheet music and notation there as the background of the piece at an angle, but we also have Quicksilver and Madrox, the multiple man, smiling, and certainly Quicksilver is not renowned for smiling at all. And who is this new character playing the violin as well? So it's intriguing. We also have the caption, Rhapsody of Death, but I do think it's very effective to have that white sheet music as a border and framing for the characters, and also the idea to have it at a tilted angle perspective as well. Really interesting stuff. And let's open it up now to the first page and get into the story. So 22 pages of story and art here. You can see straight away that this is not Larry Stroman on art, so he is taking a month off. He will return as penciler in the subsequent issue, number 80. So the situation here is a domestic space, the home of an old married couple. Harry's the man in the armchair, and his wife comes in asking him whether he's fallen asleep reading again, and it seems he's dead. And there is a mysterious blue-faced woman looking in the window. You in the window. It was, she says, you, and she screams. So that's our opening. Is it a murder? Is that what we have here? And then we get a splash page at X Factor's headquarters in Washington, D.C. And we've got Madrox with the dupe playing the piano. And you can see very clearly Quicksilver not enjoying the sound. Title of the story, Rhapsody in Blue. Creative team down here. Peter David writer. Jim Fern is the guest penciler here. Inks, as per usual, by Al Milgrom. Letters by Michael Heisler. And colours by Glynis Oliver. So some of the rest of X Factor arrive, telling Pietro to ease up. He's just a beginner. And Pietro says, I've never played either, but a trained baboon could do better than that. That's pretty funny. So Guido makes a bet with him. Okay, Monkey Boy, 20 bucks says you couldn't do better. And Quicksilver takes the bet. So Madrox reabsorbs his dupe, and Quicksilver sits down at the piano. Now, let's see, he says. Black Bolt used to play one of these. Crystal always insisted we watch. Middle C was here, I think. So he's truly starting as a beginner. Alex says he's stalling. Then he starts hammering away at the piano keys, and everybody's covering their ears here because of the cacophonous sound. Man, I thought this was going to be an easy 20 bucks, says Guido. And let's continue. We have some of the rest of X Factor arriving, Polaris and Wolfsbane, and finally, Valerie Cooper. I just blanked on her name there for a second. That wasn't good. So Val Cooper basically tells Pietro to knock it off. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but that's enough. So all of this crazy notation here, the jagged musical notation, begins to even out and cohere. And it is a really interesting way of showing that Quicksilver is getting the hang of it. And Wolfsbane recognizes, good heavens, that's lovely. That's the Moonlight Sonata. It's my favorite piece. I love it. And Quicksilver said, so did Black Bolt. And even Madrox has to admit, Pietro, I hate to admit it, but that's gorgeous. Pietro there, never humble, says, I know. And Polaris asks him, then what do you call that hideous racket before? Learning, he says, as he leans back with a smile on his face, a smile of satisfaction. Learning. So there's Guido handing over the 20 bucks, telling Quicksilver that he hates him, and Quicksilver basically telling him to be quiet. I'm concentrating. This is from memory and by ear. So really impressive that he's learned to play the Moonlight Sonata, Mozart's Moonlight Sonata, in such a... wait a minute. I'm wondering, is it Mozart? Yeah, I think it's Mozart is Moonlight Sonata. Now, if I've got that wrong, I know somebody's going to correct me in the comments. And yeah, but look, Madrox is enjoying it. Everybody's sitting down now to listen. What are you so enraptured about, Jamie? Asks Polaris. I thought you were a Motown junkie. And he replies, hey, I know beauty when I hear it. But I do like the way that Peter David is giving the characters their own distinctive voices in throughout the title, but also in this particular issue. It's really enjoyable stuff, and we learn little bits more about them. Like, for example, here, what Jamie's musical taste is normally. So then the scene switches, and it brings us the character from the cover. And the location is Two Forks, Maine. And the police are after this blue-skinned woman. And she makes her way to the music shop, smashes her fist through the window, and grabs an instrument there, even as the cops are training their sidearms on her. And what happens? It's a violin that she's taken from the store, and she starts to play. And I think this is a really nice sequence here by Jim Fern. I mean, like, this is difficult to do, what he's drawing here. He doesn't have a very flashy style. His style is competent, but very, like, really competent. Very smooth storytelling. And this sequence, as I said, I really like it. He's very cleverly varying the size of the figure. So we have kind of a mid close-up here. We've got a tighter close-up on her bust and face there. Then we get the full figure, and then a smaller figure there, as somehow or other the music allows her to lift off and fly up into the sky. So the cops are just left there wondering, we're going to need help on this one. So yeah, and they're kind of, some of them charmed, baffled and charmed. So who are they going to call? Well, I suppose we expect it's got to be X Factor, right? And this is another little interesting comic interlude from Peter David, where Guido is all dressed up in a suit. He's fixing his hair there, and this is all set up from the previous issue that he's going to show Sean around town. Now, this is a reference to 80s and 90s actress Sean Young. So you'll know her best, probably, dear subscriber, from the film, the first film, Blade Runner, the 1982 Blade Runner film by Ridley Scott. And so she plays Rachel in that, the replicant Rachel. And Peter David's playing around with the idea. I don't know if this was true, that she was one of the candidates to potentially play Catwoman in the 1992 Batman Catwoman movie, rather than Michelle Pfeiffer. And if you look up Sean Young in the late 80s, early 90s, you can see what Peter David was thinking, that she would have made a good Selena Kyle. But in any case, back to the humor and banter here. Madrox is skeptical. You're not still giving me this nonsense about you're dating that actress, are you? First, I think she's married or something. Second, no offense, she's not in your league. And Guido replies to the first comment. I simply say, things can change. The second comment's beneath my, what do you call it, dignity to reply to. So there's a knock on the door. That's probably her. And look who it is. It's Catwoman? No, it's the actress dressed as Catwoman. How does she look? She asks him. Great as always, babe, but look, I gotta be honest, the film's wrapped. It's in the can. Michelle got the part. It's not gonna happen for you, babe. Time to give it a rest, okay? Time to move on. And off they go on their date. And Madrox is flabbergasted. He can't fool me, though, he says. That's not her. That's some woman you got to dress up like that just to make me nuts. But I'm not falling for it. As he slams the door shut. But he's crestfallen. I like the little detail here that Fern is stuck in of, is that a portrait of Professor X there on the wall? So he's there insisting he's not going to fall for it. And Quicksilver arrives. Come on, Madrox. We've been stuck together on a job. Let's go. Go where, he asks. I'll fill you in on the way. Take a few quick, deep breaths, says Quicksilver. Why should I? Why should I do that? And then they're gone out the door. And off to, what is it called again? Two Forks, Maine, I would have to say. That's a nicely drawn page. Like, Jim Fern has got some skills, but what's all this hatching he's doing around the face? It's as if he's trying to imitate the style of Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld in that regard, with the hatching and cross hatching. You can see it throughout. I mean, like, it was kind of like the premier style of the time, but I wonder, does it really suit his style so well? In any case, there they are. They're in Two Forks, Maine, or rather the scene switches there, and we have someone from the town giving out about the mutant freak, that she's a murderer. Margaret here saw her standing outside the window. Harry's dead, but that person is still running free, menacing her children and her town. Now, how do you explain that? So the sergeant at the desk says, we're doing our best, and if you must know, we're having specialists brought in. So this is the era here in 1992. You've got a portrait there of George Bush Sr. as president, behind the sergeant's desk. And I wonder, was that in Peter David's script, or is it Jim Fern's edition? But in any case, it's kind of like a caricature of Bush Sr., a little bit humorous. Specialists asked the guy to deal with freaks. What kind of specialists? So with the whoosh there, we know it's Quicksilver and Madrox. A little bit more comedy with the guy's hairpiece falling off with the wind. What did you bring them in for? Asked the guy. All they're going to do is take her side. And Quicksilver says, God forbid that we would side with her against brainless bigotry. Okay, let's see where all of this is going. Madrox says to Quicksilver, don't waste your breath or your anger on him, Quicksilver. He's not worth it. Calm down. Yes, of course you're right, says Quicksilver. And Madrox asks the desk sergeant, we're supposed to meet with some folks. And the sergeant replies, yes, they're waiting for you right inside, down the hallway, fourth door on the left. So off they go. And Quicksilver says, Valerie must have thought it a colossal joke to partner me with you. Because, of course, these truly are chalk and cheese. Madrox with his wacky sense of humor and his predilection for prank playing, and Quicksilver with his super seriousness and, I suppose, arrogance as well. So Quicksilver continues, you stand there in the face of their bigotry and ignorance, and you have the nerve to tell me to calm down? If you were any sort of man besides multiple, you'd have volunteered to help me beat some sense into them. So what does Madrox say in reply? He says, now hold on a second. When I said you should ease up, you said I was right. And Quicksilver replies, in front of them, of course. We have to present a united front. That doesn't make what you said any less of a joke. So Madrox is there, kind of crestfallen a little bit, and Quicksilver very determined. And we have to remember that once upon a time he was a member of his father's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the original iteration of the Brotherhood, before going off to join the Avengers. So then the scene shifts to Washington DC. So what's the rest of X Factor doing? While Quicksilver and Madrox are off on that particular mission. Well, Lorna's out doing a bit of window shopping. She spies this red dress and she's thinking about her relationship with Alex. I'd feel so much better about everything if I had any idea where we really stand with our relationship, she thinks to herself. Everything's up in the air. We're still staying at Guido's place until we decide whether we want a place of our own. Makes me itchy, she says to herself. Wonder if Alex saw me wearing that dress, if the itch might get scratched. So Peter David implying that she's kind of getting romantically backed up, if you know what I mean. And then whose hand is this armoured hand that taps her on the shoulder and punches her out cold with a left hook and then left again, it seems. And there she is, unconscious on the sidewalk. And it seems like there's nobody around either. So what on earth is that? Well, of course, we'll find out in the next issue. And then the scene switches back to Maine. And we have, we're at like an interview room there, or a boardroom. And Quicksilver and Madrox are being greeted by Captain O'Day and Bill Warden, the police commissioner. And Quicksilver's asking, I understand this woman was a music teacher. So that's the woman in blue. And the police commissioner tells him, "You believe in getting right down to it, don't you? Don't want coffee or anything?" Quicksilver replies, "The last thing I need is caffeine." That's kind of funny. "And no, I see a little point in dawdling over niceties. We have a job and I'd like to do it before the woman gets hurt." So now we're going to get our briefing. So Quicksilver's correct. She's a music teacher. The suspect's name is Rachel Argosy, although a lot of the kids nicknamed her Rhapsody. She taught music at the high school. And the commissioner says, "I understand that mutants usually display their powers when hitting puberty." So that's confirmed there by Madrox. But with her, we see the photos there of her. By your standards, Rachel was something of a late bloomer, says the commissioner. Maybe it had something to do with her having meningitis as a kid. She's 20 now, and it only just manifested. Her skin turned blue, and when she plays instruments, well, weird things happen. She was tremendously popular with the kids, but the parents complained they didn't want, and I apologize for this gentleman, he says, they didn't want mutants teaching their children, especially mutants who were so overt or obvious. The school board held an open meeting, and after grievances were aired, they voted to terminate her employment. The man on the school board who was the biggest supporter of the firing was Harry Sharp. That's the guy with the hairpiece. 2 days later, it's the guy beside him. 2 days later, Harry was found dead in his study. We saw that at the beginning of the issue, and his wife spotted Rachel peering in through the window, and we did see that. The guy leading the lynch mob, by the way, is Harry's business partner, Dick Roper. So that's the guy with the hairpiece. Now, at this point, I can't remember who done it. Even though once upon a time I read the next issue, issue number 80, I can no longer remember who done it. So it feels to me as if I'm reading this for the first time. And my guess is that who done it? It's Dick Roper, right? That's my guess. And he's shifting the blame onto the music teacher, scapegoating her. But we'll see if that turns out to be the case. And Quicksilver asks, well, what was the cause of death? Look, Madrox here, just sitting back. Quicksilver's taking charge. I mean, like, he's a former Avenger, so he's the older character. And I like that characterization too, that Madrox is just there kind of hanging around while Quicksilver leads everything. So what does the commissioner say? He says the Crowner hasn't established it yet. That's the creepy thing, really. It's just like Harry, or it's like Harry just stopped. Quicksilver says, if that's the case, how can you be certain his death was foul play at all? We're not, says the commissioner, although the very nature of his death is so unusual that it seems to indicate someone unusual was involved. And Quicksilver replies, that seems more of a matter of convenience then, but they're interrupted by one of the cops who comes in saying Rhapsody's been spotted over in the industrial park. So Quicksilver gets directions, grabs Madrox, who tries to catch his breath, and off they go. So just something about this reminds me a little bit like Peter David at the time was a big fan of David Lynch's Twin Peaks. I think he also was a fan or enjoyed the X-Files as well. And I just have this I have this sense that this little murder mystery could kind of fit halfway between the X-Files and Twin Peaks, really, in some ways. Like the guy dying, like he just stopped. Like that's intriguing. That's the kind of thing that could happen in either of those two TV series. So again, this is a really interesting visual of the way that she flies by playing the violin. The music helps her fly. And so Quicksilver spots her, and he's trying to, he drops Madrox on the bonnet of one of the cop cars. If I time this just right, he says to himself, and use the side of the building for my runway, then it should be just a matter of moments before I've got her. So he runs up the side of the building. That's like something out of a cartoon. And he grabs her, kind of tackles her, and they go right through the skylight into this storeroom. And she pulls a flute from the pocket of her skirt. And so we know that she's going to be able to do something with that. Madrox is there with a load of dupes as well. I'm sure they wound up in this warehouse. So he's checking around for Quicksilver and the woman. So he hears music coming up ahead. And so one thing she's able to do with the flute is charm Quicksilver, so that he actually floats up into the air. And whatever way she's charmed him with the music, he's there thinking of Crystal, his wife, that he's separated from at the moment. Madrox goes to grab her. She just smiles at him, and that's enough to charm him. And then she plays the music, and then he's completely bamboozled. What the heck's going on here? Everything around him, the whole environment is all topsy-turvy with weird angles and perspectives. Everything upside down and the wrong way around. It's starting to look like Little Nemo in Warehouse Land, he says to himself. So that's a reference to one of the earliest comics from the early 20th century, Winsor McKay's Little Nemo in Slumberland. So a little kind of comics allusion, Easter egg there from Peter David. And then we have Madrox naked. He's in this tornado coming down towards a barn out in the countryside. Hey, that's the farmhouse in Kansas, the place I grew up. So we don't know too much about his background, about his childhood, except that it wasn't very nice for him. And there playing in the wheat field is the woman. Hello, my love, she says, we can make beautiful music together. And so she grabs him around the neck, kisses him, and they fall into the wheat field. But it was all a fantasy that she conjured. Hi, we sensed you were spacing out, but since we hadn't heard the music yet, it didn't stop us. So it was useful that he had those other dupes created looking for Quicksilver and the woman. So we knew to cover our ears when you fell and we multiplied. That's all it took to. But some of the Madroxes say, you idiots, you may be my duplicates, get your hands off her. So they're arguing with each other, and Quicksilver tells him to snap out of it. So he does, and she starts protesting now. Please, believe me, I didn't hurt him. I couldn't hurt anyone. This is actually the first time that she's spoken properly in the issue as well. Not you, not Mr. Sharp, no one. Don't turn me over to them. They hate me. They'll kill me, she says. So we're going to get a little debate here between Madrox and Quicksilver. Don't worry, says Madrox. We'll make sure no one hurts you, and we won't leave until this is all cleared up. But Quicksilver's more cautious. Madrox careful. Perhaps she did do it. She certainly gave me difficulty. Madrox insists she's innocent. She has a beautiful soul. I sensed it. You said our kind has to stick together. Back me on this, please. So Quicksilver's words coming back to haunt him here. You can see that look of consternation on his face, but he acquiesces. I'm going to regret this. So Madrox says, thanks, Pietro. I knew you couldn't be the complete dirtbag everyone else says you are. So that catches him by surprise. Well, obviously I'm not the... And then he realizes what's just been said. What do you mean, everyone? That's really good stuff from Peter David. And good expressions in the art by Jim Fern. So what about what's going on back in Washington? So we have Val having a little talk there with Alex, and she says, this is Marilyn Maycroft. So there's a picture here of a woman. She's going to be testifying against a major drug cartel. She's also a mutant and a former member of a group of female enforcers named Hell's Bells who work for the cartel. And Alex says, dryly, she's adorable, got a nickname, Shrew. Val replies, and I'll bet she hasn't even been tamed. So a Shakespeare reference there to Shakespeare's comedy, The Taming of the Shrew. Val says, you're so funny you should be on the stage. There's one leaving town in 10 minutes. So all these Peter David puns, but it's pretty good. Val continues, at any rate, Ms. Maycroft's currently in government care, but the concern is that her old teammates will track her down and snuff her. So we're watchdogging her until after her testimony, at which point she'll enter the witness protection program. And Alex says, I'm sure she'll blend in seamlessly in whatever small town they place her. And just at this point, Rain, of all people, who's been having a rivalry with Lorna, arrives with the news that something is wrong with Lorna. They just rang from the hospital. She's been rushed in, and they don't know if she'll make it. So that's a big shock. So whoever delivered those massive punches to Lorna's face and head has done some serious damage. We'll learn who that is in the next issue. So yeah, intriguing stuff here. You know, Peter David thinking out interesting uses of the X Factor, the kind of like the idea of X Factor as a team of mutants working for the government. What kinds of things would they be doing different from the X-Men, different from X-Force? So he's really giving them a distinctive identity in respect of the kinds of adventures there are, like taking care of this witness in a major drug cartel because she's a mutant, or Quicksilver and Madrox going to Maine because there's trouble with a mutant music teacher. Those kinds of things. It's yeah, it's really well thought out. He's giving the book its own distinctive identity and doing it very well at this point. There you go. So some letters here about issue 74. And that is it. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X Factor number 79. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.